I just dropped my treasure duck all over my keyboard. You see my treasure duck, Tony?
I saw it at Rust of the Rockies, I think.
Yeah, Dwight. Dwight gave me this duck, this treasure duck. It sits here on my desk. And
it's a pirate.
It's a pirate. It's a pirate duck.
Pirate duck.
Arr, quack. Right. How you been, man?
Busy.
Yeah.
Busy. You know, that's normal, right? I mean, why should we just expect anything? That's life. Everybody is busy. Everybody has stuff to do.
All the time.
Yeah.
And when you don't, you usually fill it.
Right. You fill it with something so you stay busy again.
Right. Shoot. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Relics Radio. Another Thursday night here on Relics Radio. Thanks for joining Tony and myself. Yeah, I'd love to you guys tune in later, download the show. We see the numbers. Would love to chat with you. Just reach on out to me over there at the Relics Radio Facebook group. Drop me a message over there. Would love to chat with you, see what you're finding out there. But hey, really appreciate the people joining us live and popping in the chat here. Even if you can't come in the chat, we know a lot of you listen live too. So I just want to say hey to you all, and thanks for being here. Season 7, boy. We just kicked off Season 7 on our last podcast. Whew, here we go, Season 7.
Season 7, Episode 2 already.
That's it.
Just seems like it just seems like it was last week we were on Episode 1.
It just seems like it, doesn't it? It was the week before, I think, wasn't it?
Was it?
We missed last week?
That's right, we did, yeah.
We did.
Slackers.
Yeah, so we're total slackers. You know, to say hello to some people coming in the chat. I see Greg from Fine America. How you doing, Greg?
Yeah, Greg.
Good to see you, man.
He's starting to come every week now. It's great to see him on there. Bill Hayes was first in the chat this week. So
What's up, Bill?
Mr. Hayes.
Yeah.
Amphibious Detecting says, "Heidi ho there, neighbors." What's that
Oh,
from?
yeah.
Do you remember where that's from?
Heidi ho, neighbors. Let me think. It's coming to me. Go ahead. If you got it, say it.
It's in the Toolman Taylor. What was the show? Home Improvement.
Yeah. Home Improvement. That's it.
Heidi ho there, neighbors.
Heidi ho. There you go.
Full Metal Digger, David Rose, always in the chat. Always a pleasure having Mr. Full Metal Digger in the chat.
Yeah, how you doing, Dave? Good to see you popping in here.
Lots more.
Yeah, Greg, boy,
in.
we gotta get a hold of you too. We want you. We got this whole list of people we want to have on the show this year, and Greg's definitely on it. So be looking out for that message coming your way, there, Greg. We'd love to have you on this side of the chat group. You know what I'm saying? That'd be awesome. If we ever get Bill Hayes on too, we'd love to have him on sometime, chatting about all the stuff he's out there.
I'm not holding my breath on that one.
You know, I'm going to reach out to you though, the Bill. So just
that guy's tough to pin down.
Yeah, we'll get him on one of these days.
Good.
I'd like to get the two Bills on. That would be fun.
That would, man. Hour and a half wouldn't we just get through introductions at an hour and a half?
Speaking of the devil, here it comes. Ohio Relic Hunter. We were just chatting about you, Bill. Were your ears burning? But
nice.
I guess you have to go back and listen to the replay now.
There you go.
What have you been up to, man? I know you've been busy. You did a little bit of shooting.
Yeah. Went out goose hunting a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Going out this weekend for duck. It's right in the start of it. So I mean, we've been so warm. Those ducks just aren't flying yet. They haven't been. All we've been on are just the local ones. They haven't really pushed anything down from Canada and the Dakotas or anything like that. So we're just getting the ones that are too smart because they're around here all the time anyway. So, but we'll see.
Cracks me up how they learn where the line is, where you can legally shoot.
Oh, they do.
And where you can't shoot.
They'll
be like a road apart. They're in that field. They're not in this room.
Yeah, if you don't get them coming over, they're going to the private field across the street there, and then they'll just sit there all day long, just squawking at you.
That's it. John Silver in the house. How you doing? This is Tony and Ken. Miss you guys. Been a long time. Delta 5 for life.
Sweet.
What's up, John?
Good to have you, John. What have you been up to?
Oh,
work.
Work, of course, work. But still caring for my little injured dog type of thing, and got me worried. You know how it is when you get to love these little mutts. And so taking care of him, and then we also made the decision recently, to move my elderly mother in with us. And so she's actually coming this Sunday,
Okay.
moving out to Colorado. So she's in a wheelchair and we don't really have room for her. She was in a real bad situation where she had nowhere to go, really. She can't really afford anywhere. And, Medi-Cal wouldn't pick her up. She's in California. But so my wife and I just decided to bring her out here and move her in with us. And we're going to give her the master bedroom, master bath. So my wife and I moved into the basement. So
nice.
Down here in our fully furnished basement. So it's not too bad. It's like a little apartment down here, but yeah, we just decided to move down here about a week. We've been down here about a week, just getting used to it and getting the dog used to it. And then she'll be here Sunday. She'll be in time for Thanksgiving. She's so excited. And we're excited to
That's a tough situation. I mean, you got a good house for it, fortunately. There's other people that wouldn't have, all the bedrooms say upstairs or, something like that, nothing on the main level. So you guys are blessed and, it's the right thing to do. You're inspiring to be the best person. You're doing the right thing. We all know that. So
check in with me in about a month.
I know.
See what a good guy I am.
I think you're moving into my house in about a month.
Yeah, I am. No, things will be good. I'm trying to figure out ramps to get her into the house because my house is all steps. There's 8 steps extending over 20 feet into my front door. And about 8 steps going straight up, it seems like, in my garage, and a little bit less in the back, but then I have to wheel her across the grass. So right now I've got it. You should see what I have, Rig. I'll take a picture and you should see what I have put together.
I'm interested to see.
It's ramps that I can put up and then take down, like these fold out ramps.
Just bring in your construction crew. They can take care of it. Build you something nice.
Oh, they offered to come completely construct everything, but I got an HOA to worry about. And
that's right.
All that stuff. So.
Nice.
Yeah. Hey, let's bring our guest in. Let's get going with buddy Patrick. Let's get him going.
This is exciting. Kicking off season 7, episode 2. We've been trying to lock this down for a little bit, and we've been blessed and lucky enough to bring on Patrick Whitton from Amphibious Detecting. If you haven't seen him on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere out there, you guys are going to need to check him out. I'll post the links. But Patrick, thank you so much for being on Relics Radio.
My pleasure, and thanks for having me back.
Sure, absolutely, man. I'm glad you could do it. I'm glad you could jump on with us. I know you're a busy guy, too. Busy. We're just talking about that before the show started.
Yeah, absolutely, But you got to make time for your passions. Otherwise, what are we doing here?
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. That's true.
Yeah, I was just, it was Friday night, last Friday. I don't know if I should tell the story or not, but last Friday, I had a treasure hunting meeting. Treasure hunting club meets second Friday every month. You know where I'm going with this.
This is
a great
story. How far down the hole
should I go?
Full trip.
Yeah, you're going to get it right here.
So I work way up north. I work an hour and a half away from where we meet. And I have another branch office of my company I work for about 15 minutes away from where we meet. So I always kind of leave early on Fridays and come down to, when I have these meetings, come down to the Denver office, and I work out of there for the rest of the day, last couple hours, see a bunch of my buddies down there I haven't seen. Usually don't get much work done, but we chat. And then when it's time for the meeting, I just head over there. It's a real easy drive at that point, so I kind of beat all the traffic. So I did that last Friday. And in the meetings, I'm also the guy that runs most of the IT. So I put up the presenter and run their PowerPoint or bring people in on Zoom. Like that's sort of my role there in the club, since I'm not on the board anymore. And so I was set up to do something that night too, and I'm just waiting to go. Well, oh boy. So when I got to the Denver office, the president of our company was there, and he's not there all the time. He's there occasionally, and when he can be, and he loves sitting in the kitchen there and just kind of chatting, catching up with everyone, talking about the jobs, telling about how everything's going. And so we got there, and we usually drink a beer or two while we're sitting there in the kitchen. And so he got on me about something. He loves to tease me. He loves to give me a bad time. And I said something about, oh man, I'm going to need a shot of whiskey after that one.
2 seconds later.
Out comes his bottle. And, we're sitting there sipping on whiskey. So now it's getting later and the whiskey is delicious. And I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? I gotta go
How
to
do you
this
scoot
meeting.
out?
I go to this meeting, but now he's chatting my ear off. Well, and then it comes around to the topic of metal detecting and YouTube. And the whole audience of the kitchen, there's probably 6-7 people there. Now we start talking about everything that I'm passionate about. Well, of course, I'm not going to stop, right? I'm just going to explain to everybody about this passion. Some people were getting it, some people weren't. But next thing I know, I'm a few sips of whiskey in. No, I'm not going to make it to this meeting. So now I'm calling the president of my detecting club and apologizing to him and having him apologize to the guy I was going to present, finding out quickly if somebody else could do it. And that's the first meeting I've missed in a long time. And the only meeting I've missed due to drinking whiskey with the president of my company. So
It'll get you every time.
I got a tipsy text from Ken. Hey, are you at the meeting? I'm not going to make it.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, it was definitely a unique night. I was like, man,
Well, I think you're a bit of a local celebrity in your business too, right?
Yeah, that came up. Yeah, that came up too. The president of our company always likes telling that story that when he was back at our corporate office in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, he was getting ready for a board meeting there. So you have all the big muckety mucks, and I guess the IT department was in there doing a presentation about some new computer thing they were going to roll out to the company. And all of a sudden, somebody brought up to Bob, he was the president of my company, like, hey, we never knew that Ken was Adventures in Dirt. Like, me and my wife watch it every week. And now the guy's like, yeah, I couldn't believe it either. I watch it all the time. Like, so some people in my IT department watch my YouTube channel and love it. And they just didn't know. They didn't put two and two together. They didn't know, and because I don't use my name a lot in my YouTube channel, but yeah. So Bob said, Ken, I couldn't believe it. I'm there with all these high muckety mucks, the CEO, everyone. And the first 30 minutes of this very important board meeting was spent talking about Adventures in Dirt. So we chatted about that Friday too. Like, the rest of the company there that was in that kitchen hadn't heard that story yet. So now, of course, everyone's asking questions, and it was on like Donkey Kong.
It's a not so subtle reminder that you provide a valuable service to the community and everyone else.
Well, there you go.
Jeez.
I'll take that. But you mentioned being passionate, and boy, I tell you, when you get me going,
yeah.
I actually apologized to everyone later. I sent them a text, talk about sending a tipsy text. I was like, sorry, man, for just running my mouth. You get me on that subject, and I can't stop.
Well, that's intoxicating to people, right?
Yeah. Some of us, other people are like,
some it's the whiskey.
just tell me that you make metal detecting. If not, I don't want to hear it. guys. So what have you been up to, Patrick? You've been getting out at all? You've been,
Well, it was an interesting 2 years. I was really busy. I got married, and to my little prankster wife there, who gives me a little giggle because you showed that rubber ducky. It reminds me how many she hid in the house that I knocked down. So I had to demolish 2 homes in that time. We bought a home. We moved twice to pull that off. And so now I'm back at it. So it's been a really great experience to take that time off, kind of reset, and hit the ground running now that I have more time to get some more detecting in. So I've been really doing a lot this fall. Yeah.
Yeah, you and I got to know each other a couple of years ago, mainly over YouTube and then just through metal detecting everything. And we had you on as a guest before back then. And so congratulations on getting married. I know that,
Thank you.
I'd never met your wife, but I'd heard a lot about her and all of her escapades. And you alluded to it a minute ago. So Sarah is her name, right? Sarah?
That's correct.
So
the infamous Sarah.
You got to tell me about the rubber ducks. So I don't think I ever heard anything about rubber ducks.
Oh, yes. So I was at work and I came home and there was about 100 rubber ducks hidden everywhere you can imagine in this house. I had pots hanging on the walls. I'd grab a pot, ducks would fall out. This went on for months, right? So it ended up being 400 ducks. So I find these things all over the place. We went back and forth pranking each other with these things for a couple years. So we have fond memories of the wonderful duck that you're holding in your hand.
Oh my gosh, 400 ducks.
one of the funny treasure things I found. So when I tore these two houses down, one was built in I want to say 31, and the other one was probably built in 49. And I recorded it. I never posted any of that stuff. But one of the things I found when I dug up the septic was there's a rubber duck floating in the septic.
Jeez.
Couldn't even get it. It's just they're everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
That's hilarious.
Yep. So even there.
Yeah. Wow. I know one of the favorite stories you had always told me is of her helping you with your hobby.
Oh,
and your passion in a great way. You want to tell that story? You know where I'm going with that?
Oh yeah. So when we first started dating, years ago, probably before I was born, my parents used to, I ended up buying the house from them and they moved, but they used to have a water ski club that would meet at the house. And so this woman came, she took off this 3-carat diamond ring, put it on the dock, and went water skiing. Somebody else sat down and flicked it into the water. So I told her this story, and she's like, "Oh, you should get a metal detector." I'm like, "Well, it's underwater though." She's like, "Yeah, they make ones for underwater." I had no idea. So she's the one that got me into it.
Wow.
And so as retribution for how often I started doing this, her and her father came up with this great idea to make these nice 1x2-inch aluminum plates that were engraved that said "dork," and they're scattered across the lake bottom for me to find. So every now and then I get one of these great signals down in the mud. I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to be it. This is going to be the ring or something else that's epic. And I fish out a dork plate.
It says dork. How many do you think they made? Did they ever tell you?
Well,
400, like
not 400.
She's one of these people where if you've ever heard the story about the pig or the two pigs that were released as a senior class prank in high school where they would label them like 3 and 4. So everyone's looking for the other two.
For 1 and 2.
Exactly. She kind of, I feel like she's playing games with me a little bit because some of them were numbered and they were higher numbers. And I'm kind of like, oh
no. That's epic.
It's like 3,254, 3,255.
I don't even want to think about
it. Hey, good job. You got the high ones. Now I got to find the low ones.
I know. As if detecting underwater wasn't hard enough, Right. I got to contend with that. Jeez.
It's funny. When I worked at a bank, my manager was gone for a week on vacation, and we had these little cubicles set up. And when he was gone, my wife and I went in after hours, and we filled up his entire cubicle with balloons, just balloons all the way up to the top. You can see it through the glass, everything like that. It's pretty funny. In addition to that, I had taken, he's pretty political. Like we go back and forth with politics and stuff like that. There's a senator that he just cannot stand, like with a passion, just despises the senator. Well, I made copies of her picture, and I had put them all inside the cubicle in his journals, in drawers that were locked. I mean, behind his computer. Like 3 years later, I get a text from him, and it's just a picture of another picture that he had found. He's like, I thought I was done finding these, and he's still finding these. Same exact thing. Just an absolutely hilarious prank. Of course, the people that have to find them all don't think it's very funny.
Right.
I'm surprised you and I haven't played a lot of practical jokes on each other, Tony.
We haven't.
I love playing practical jokes.
I do too.
And I know you do too. So
all right.
Well,
I'm not inviting it.
Tony, the next time you go digging with him, make sure you put a little one of those chocolate gold coins in one of your holes.
Yeah.
Just leave it there for him, That'll be a good prank for him.
We were talking about the AccuPoint, and the tip comes off. And if I can get a hold of an AccuPoint, and I'll just throw a piece of foil inside the tip there, close it back on there.
I'm like, I can't find this darn target, man.
It's going off nonstop. Look, I'm putting it up in the air. It's going
pulsing.
Off. Damn thing's
Sends
broken.
It back to Nocta. Oh gosh.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Send it back.
I didn't even thought. Oh, Patrick, that's great, man. Like, this thing sucks, man. You gotta do something about it.
We were talking about this earlier. So I'm an automotive teacher, and one of the things that sometimes I hear about is the people that work on the assembly line will prank vehicles for
oh no,
as comeback. So one of the ones that I'd heard about in the past was local dealer was telling me that they had a customer that was complaining about every time they closed the door would bang. And so the car kept coming back. It was a Suburban. It was like $80,000. And they opened up the door panel, and there was a rock in there. And the rock said, "Took you guys long enough to find this." And it had the plant where the thing was built.
What?
With the guy. Yeah.
Ah,
Yep.
ah, that's
Oh my
great.
gosh.
That is great, man. It's fun when you can get somebody pretty good. I remember when I was real young and still living at home. I remember me and my brother. We would always. My parents had this a carpet runner, plastic carpet runner, with the death spikes underneath it.
Yes.
You know, to hold it into the carpet. Well, our favorite thing to do would be to turn that thing upside down and then go around the back and knock on the door, ring the doorbell. My dad never wore shoes. He only just walked around the house in socks. So we would stand out front long enough to hear him go, "Oh, you know what I mean?"
I had no idea your father invented the electric slide.
Oh,
we go running, man.
that's funny.
He was a great practical joker too. He used to like to do stuff like he'd go to the dumps, take stuff to the dumps. He was always bringing stuff back. Talk about a treasure hunter. Like he was always thinking he was going to find something that was worth $1 million at the dumps, you know. And he brought back this box of old books.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my aunt was visiting, and we were just in the morning, and him and I went to the dumps, and he brought back this box of books. And he goes, "Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if we found like some first editions in here?" And as he's looking through the books, we found like all these old photographs of like this black family from like Alabama that had the name of the town on it and stuff. And it was kind of cool seeing all these old photos. And then my aunt picked up a book and opened it up to see if it was a first edition. And all these $100 bills came falling out.
Oh boy.
Oh, you should see the front room. It lit up like a candle. And all of us were like, oh, like my mom was screaming. My aunt was, oh, Ray, you know, oh my gosh, you know. Well, we had just won the football pull at work like the weekend before. So he had all these $100 bills and he had stuffed them all in this book, you know, and tucked them underneath. So,
oh my gosh.
I think that's where I get my love of practical jokes. My dad was always doing stuff like that all the time.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
They're good when they come off. Yeah.
I did the Nerf gun prank with my wife. She came home from work and I had put the Nerf gun by the door with just a piece of paper. It says, you know, here's your weapon. Whoever loses has to make dinner. And oh my gosh. What's funny is we had both. I was a cop for a while, and she went through the police academy as well. But so I had cameras all over the house. I mean, being a YouTuber and things like that, you've got GoPros and all kinds. So I've got all these cameras from different angles all over the house. She starts clearing the house like she's on freaking LAPD SWAT, and I'm like, oh man, I'm in for it now. That was a good one.
Who could do it?
I did. That's why I never take her out to the range with me too. She cannot shoot me like she's a dead eye.
There you go.
We told the story on here before, but remember the ice water challenge that was going around for ALS or something like that a while back? Videotape yourself dumping a bucket of ice on you. Well, you and Caden, right, had a contest and he lost. And so, there's Mama Bear watching her son get ready to be doused with this ice water. And they got the camera set up and it's perfect because you just see him and Caden, just Tony and Caden sitting there. And he's like, "Are you ready?" And he just took so much glee in dumping that ice water over Caden's head. And he was shirtless, wasn't he? Wasn't he shirtless?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
So it was going to be cold, man. It was a bucket of ice water. But what he didn't know is in the background, you slyly saw the screen door open up in the background. And here comes Tony's wife with this gigantic bucket of ice water and just doused Tony, man. Just right as soon as he doused Caden, she doused him. And it was epic.
Gosh, I had such a great challenge planned for that ALS ice bucket challenge.
Yeah.
I had a dump truck. I was going to fill it with water and I was going to dump it on myself. So I actually, at the time, I owned a fire truck and I drove it I got permission to pull the water out of the hydrant at the fire station because I was a volunteer fireman. I drove down there with some guys in the fire truck, and then we realized that the fire truck I had, which I'd bought from a neighboring district, had different connections than our fire hydrant, so we couldn't pull it off.
Oh.
The biggest letdown there could have ever been for that, It's like, oh, come on. Oh well.
I didn't know they had different
probably a
connections.
life was saved that day.
It could have been. You might have a point there. Like there's some dumb stuff I've done in my life. That might have been one of them.
Yeah, they saved you. They saved you.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. Oh, well, yeah, we talked a lot about everything but metal detecting tonight so far, right?
I know.
So how's everyone doing? If you're just joining us, welcome. We're on with Patrick Whitton. He's with Amphibious Detecting on YouTube. You can also find him on many other social media sites like Facebook and Instagram. And you on a TikTok yet, Patrick?
No, and I don't really put much on Instagram. I'm kind of like I'm an ancient fossil. I just stay on YouTube and Facebook.
Right.
Still holding that card from when, like, oh, I'm one of the first people on Facebook because I'm in college when they came. When you could only be a college kid and be on there.
Right.
So
that
like
the
brand loyalty is strong.
There you go.
Well, you can find all the links to Patrick's channels and his social media right down below. I know Tony just posted it in the chat. So if you're listening later on the download, go give him a look. Check out what he's doing. He just made it back to YouTube after being off for a little while, and he's hitting it again with some great videos. You made some great finds lately.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And it's really cool. Now, where in the country are you digging? People might not know where you're from.
I'm near Saratoga, so the turning point of the American Revolution. Although you might not know it because I don't really spend that much time hunting for Revolutionary War artifacts. They do come up, but I really like that stuff that's around the 1880s, 1890s, that kind of period of time.
Yeah.
I feel like life got really complicated once we came out with the automobile. Once people had that mobility, that free time where you could exercise your passions got to be just a little bit too tempting to be, occupy every moment of your day. So
yeah,
you see in the craft. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You see it in the craftsmanship of the items. Boredom really motivates people to try hard at things, to refine their craft. And so you look at the items that were made, up until that period of time, they're so ornate and detailed.
Yeah. Buttons, what I mean? And stuff like that. They're great. And so it's Saratoga. That's in upstate New York, kind of near upstate New York, right?
Yes, that's correct. Kind of dead smack in the middle of upstate New York.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful country. The only place up that way I've been is Plattsburgh area.
That's way up there. You're near Canada then.
Yeah, pretty much. Way up there. That's beautiful, though. That whole area is beautiful. How long you been detecting, Patrick?
I can't remember if it was 2016 or 2018, somewhere in there. Not as long as the vast majority of people.
Sarah put the detector in your hand. Said, "Here."
That's right. He started off with essentially the equivalent of a pulse dive. I think it's called like a vibratector or something like that. So it's just a PI underwater thing where you dig out absolutely everything. And then I moved into an Excalibur because my primary focus originally was being underwater. I love hunting on land, especially this time of year. It's wonderful. But in the summer, when it's hot, New York, yeah, it's cold in the wintertime, but in the summertime, it's just as hot as anywhere else. So it's a great experience to be underwater. And underwater is one of the few places where it's just virgin ground. Everywhere has not been detected. It's challenging, but the finds are amazing.
So you started underwater right away?
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Wow.
Brave man.
Yeah. So after I was doing the underwater for a while, then I got a dais and started doing land detecting. And I've kind of bounced around to a bunch of different machines, but on land right now, I alternate between the Deus 2 with a stock coil on it, usually running like a park program because it's so sharp on full tones, and the 900 now with a 15-inch coil for more kind of field hunting or trying to pick out some deeper targets.
Mm-hmm. You talk about the challenge of detecting underwater. Like, I know when I bought the Simplex, I bought it specifically for the reason that it was waterproof. Mm-hmm. And I still have a desire to do it, but I was really focused back then. I thought I was going to get into a lot of these creeks here in Colorado, which sometimes can be pretty fast flowing and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember it was Jeff Lubert, man, from American Digger Magazine. He was out this way, and he's a big ring finder. He goes out a lot on ring finding missions. And he was in this little creek, man, not very high at all, under his knee. And he got caught up. And it scared him. real bad.
Sucked him down.
Really got caught up and held him down. The person that he was looking for the ring was there, and he had to come help him, and it was really scary. And I was like, man, I guess I could need to think a little more than that, because I was just gonna grab the detector and be like, go running into the creeks. I'm gonna be a creek detector.
You got to walk before you run, and I think the best, if you're looking to target creeks, I would start out somewhere where you can walk around. Slow flow, maybe knee deep, maybe waist deep at most. Look for rockier areas where there would have been activity upstream, and the rocks will catch a lot of the items. If it's a lot of sand on the bottom, if it's a lot of gravel, a lot of times there's so much fill that's been dragged in from the creeks that you might catch something, you might get lucky, but the rockier areas are really quite good. Lakes are a totally different ball game, which is where I spend the most of my time.
Yeah. But you live near a lake, don't you? Or now that you moved?
Yeah. Well, I've always, I moved 2 houses down, so it's, not a dramatic change for me, but yeah, it adds that element of extra special things when you're in the water. But the challenge with lakes is, people have lived on shores for a very long time. There's always been a lot of activity, and what you see on the shoreline today pales in comparison to what it was 100 years ago. So there's 150 years of nails and spikes and lead sinkers and fishing lures all stacked up in the first 15, 20 feet of shoreline. So, I mean, I can think back to the summer. I found a SLQ in the water, and the only reason I found it was because I was going around with a PI machine picking up every single nail, because I'm like, well, this is right outside the house. I want to get rid of the nails. The Excalibur didn't hear that thing at all. There's so much iron in there. No way. So it can be a challenge. Some of the targets easy, but when you get a lot of nails, there's another spot I go on the lake where, for whatever reason, there's handfuls of 22 shorts mixed in. So it's very difficult to tear anything, because that's worse than nails, because the machine likes those,
Yep.
Right. Jeez.
Yeah, those sound good.
They do sound good. Yeah, I remember that one hillside we were on where the guy told us actually not to go on the hillside, and then I'd lost track of where I was at, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, I told you not to come on this hillside." But I was happy to get off of it, because all I was finding were these little fresh bullets.
Yeah.
His grandsons have been firing into the side of the hill. So
yeah.
So the going in the lakes up there, you don't have to say where you're at, but I mean, is there any restrictions or regulations, or what do the town folk think of you?
I think the locals here love it. There are certain lakes that have restrictions. New York, some of the, for example, Lake George, which is a very popular lake in New York. That's a protected lake because the French and Indian War was fought on that lake. So there's sunken military vessels in the bottom of the lake, and there's cannons and mortars and artillery shells down there. Even during the Revolutionary War, there were ships that were built and sank on that lake from opposing sides. But on the little lake I live on, the people that are local really seem to appreciate the history, and I try and share a lot of that with them. So that seems to be the way of things. But
wow. So you said it was Lake George?
Lake George is. I don't live on Lake George.
Yeah.
I've not detected in Lake George because it's illegal to do it there. But that's why, is that there's a long history of it being a battle site, and the stuff that's contained in there is considered essentially, naval burial site in some ways.
That's crazy. That's amazing.
That's the same story with Saratoga Battlefield, is that it's considered a national cemetery. So it's a federal offense to detect on that property.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Often do you get asked the question, what in the heck are you doing out there?
Recently, to try and steal time, because although I thought the government was getting rid of daylight savings time, it hasn't yet materialized. That extra hour of sunlight really affects me at this time of year, because it's an hour drive home. So by the time I get home, it's dark. So I've been detecting where I work in that area, and down there, everyone's mystified by it. So I work in Albany, and Albany is one of the more urban areas of New York, and the people just do not everyone thinks I'm pulling gold nuggets out of there. I'm like, oh man, I've never thought to do that there. That's awesome. But I mean, there's still a ton of people that detect in those parks. Don't get me wrong, but the reaction from the residents is quite comical. Huh. We had one guy. I met this guy, James, through work. He just randomly showed up in my classroom the first day of school, and he goes, I heard you metal detect. I metal detect. So we go out, and the guy's in a wheelchair. So I'm mystified, how do you pull this off? And he does a great job. It's amazing. It's incredible. And so he's there talking to some guy that came over. He's like, "Oh, let me see your metal detector." I'm like, "Oh boy." And he hands the guy the metal detector and he's like, "I'm going to find a ring. You watch." The first thing he dug out was a ring right there. I couldn't believe it. We were both dying laughing. You know, it was like a non-precious, this big, huge monster ring, but it was just a great experience.
Yeah.
And the guy took it and he's like, "Thanks a lot," and then walked away. You know? All right.
All right. Yeah, I thought I saw something recently. I don't know the details. I don't know how much you can talk about it, but at some point, didn't you do a nice presentation for the local library or something with some of your finds?
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that I find, I try and keep it in batches, especially the stuff that's in town. So when I go, there used to be a trolley park on the lake, which had a carousel, it had a shooting gallery, and they had like a steamboat and all this stuff on the lake. And so all the stuff that I found at that location, I put in a display and did a presentation at the local library. And my intent's to keep adding to that over time. But I found some what I'm looking for there that I've never been able to find. And it goes back to this 22 shorts thing is I know there's rings in the water. I know it and I never find them. And it's very frustrating. It's a tough spot to detect because the lake that I live on here, it's a meromictic lake. And so that means the bottom has no oxygen. And that layer's at 60 feet. Well, there's a 120-foot hole where this trolley park is. I think it's probably the basin of a giant waterfall from a glacier 20,000 years ago. But, you know, land before boats, nothing fell into this hole. But now that there's boats, all the erosion pulls things into this deep hole. So all those finds that were probably there 60, 70 years ago, it's tough. It's tough to find stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I found a Morgan silver dollar there, but no gold rings. Come on. No.
It's got to be there.
That's right.
So have you ever done any water detecting in the oceans? Like, have you ever done any of that and some high wave stuff and saltwater stuff?
I haven't dived in done any diving in the ocean now. No, I like fresh water a lot. I've detected on beaches. Not really my thing. I totally appreciate the people that are out doing it. You know, like if I go on vacation or going to the beach, you better believe the detector's coming with me. But I'll leave the dive gear at home. That's not the environment for me.
Yeah. Have you been diving in your lakes much, or you just kind of snorkel down? Do you use like what do they call it, like a hookah system?
Yeah. So this is how I get away with it, right? So I use a hookah system. I did take the dive course and got certified and that stuff, but you start working the logistics of if you're going to use scuba tanks to treasure hunt underwater, if you're staying shallower than 20 feet, no problems, right? There's no a nitrogen buildup in your blood shallower than that. But the problem becomes your tanks, if they last 3 hours, well, you're done hunting after 3 hours and they have to go fill tanks. And the place where you might fill your tanks might be quite a ways away, and then you have to wait. And if you rush the person, the faster they fill the tanks, the less volume of oxygen there is in the tanks because the heat from forcing all that air in there expands, and then it cools, and then there's less air pressure. So I use a hookah system. I have a Nemo, which I'll probably get away from that. I do like it. It's the 10-foot thing. You know, honestly, they came out with another one. It's a Nomad Mini or something like that that goes to 30 feet. And even that I kind of find, I mean, that's probably what I'll end up getting, but I find it strange that the 30 feet thing. I would, just because of the human body, I would think you'd want to actually limit it to 20 feet just to keep people under that ceiling. But, if you want to go deeper, you can go deeper. I choose not to go deeper because I'll spend 6-7 hours underwater at a clip. I'll come back up and swap batteries. Or I have what's the other one? I have a Brownies FX35, something like that. They're huge hookah setup. And I run that a lot because I'll go, down to the 20-foot mark with that, but that's gas powered. Yeah. So there's pros and cons. Some of the smaller lakes and ponds that you go to, having a gas engine running, if they're even allowed, a lot of lakes, motors and engines are banned.
Right.
So having the electric thing works great. I said motors. If you're gonna, You're gonna chip me on the shoulder there, like an electric motor and an engine's gasoline, So the gas engine things are banned, but the electric motors are okay. And what's nice, they're lightweight, they're reliable, they're easy to store away. Having a Briggs and Stratton engine hooked to an air pump is heavy and cumbersome and takes up a lot of space. So
Right.
Trying to tailor what I'm doing to those two machines.
Should do what Bill over at Ohio Elk Hunter does. He just takes a 10-foot bamboo pole and duct tapes it to a snorkel.
When I was a kid, I tried doing that.
You tried doing it?
Yeah, it doesn't work good. I like put a garden hose. I tried so hard because I spent my life underwater as a kid. I used to snorkel and just find stuff underwater before the metal detecting thing. And I never know. It's a real shame, honestly, that when I was a kid, nobody handed me a metal detector and said, "This is how this works."
Yeah.
But hey, better late than never.
We got Stephen Andrews in the chat. How you doing, Stephen? Good to see you, Gig Master.
Yep.
Hey, he uses a hookah a lot. He said he really loves his gas powered hookah. Uses it a lot. You always see him in his videos using it, and they're great. I know that I've seen a few different people on videos at least using it, and but yeah, I thought that about the Nemo too. I was just like, wow, that 10-foot restriction, like
right.
That's got to be such a restriction for some things,
I'll tell you something though. It is and it isn't, because I've been a lot of places that I've gone. You're never going to go down to the 10-foot mark because the water's so shallow where these swimming holes are. You don't need it. You don't need all the extra hose. You don't need all that. So it is nice in that regard. But if the lake I live on gets real deep, real fast, there's ledges. And so that machine is not conducive to this particular body of water. But a lot of places I'll go, I'll take it, especially when you're diving in creeks or rivers or something like that, where it's much shallower. Makes total sense. Nice. Especially when you start considering that a faster flowing creek, the drag of the floating hookah system behind you is considerable weight when you're trying to move around in the current. So if I was trying to pull that Brownies unit with me behind me, it would just drag me downriver. It'd be very difficult.
Wow.
Yeah, Gigmaster said he's going to build an electric one this winter.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So do you think you do more water detecting than land detecting these days, or is it just sort of seasonal? And
this time of year, summertime, I try and spend all my time underwater. I'll feather in some land hunts. Right now, it's getting cold. I wake up and it's like, oh, look, the swamp behind my house is frozen. So, it's already got a sheet of ice on it, which is kind of crazy, but the smaller ponds and stuff freeze way before anything else. So I've been doing a lot of land hunting lately, but I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I'll try and show it to the camera here. So this one, this is a railroad baggage tag, right? So that's found on land.
Yeah.
And then this one is what you'd find underwater in some of these lakes. So you can see the difference. There's like no corrosion on it.
All right, Tony, describe what he's holding up to the camera for those that are listening in.
Yeah, the first one, very, I don't know how to,
oxidized?
Yeah, it looks rusted almost. It's got, a finish on it, very, not hardly identifiable. You can read it for sure, but the other one looks, brass. You can see it's got, still has the painted portions inside.
The letters. CLRI. What railway was that?
Chautauqua Lake Railway. So this is an interesting find because I found this on Chautauqua Lake. There's the oldest gated community in the United States is the Chautauqua Institution, I'm told. And so there they had a railway station that stopped at the water, and they load up these steamboats with everyone's luggage and stuff. And that's where I found it, was where the wharf was. So loading someone's items onto one of those steamboats, that thing fell off.
Wow. Love finds like that.
What age are we looking at there, you think?
Probably the 1890s, 1900. Could be a little later, as new as maybe the 20s.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Great relic, great history, and then you get to do the research and start to learn all about it then, right?
Yeah, so that one, I think that's going to end up at the County Historical Society there in Chautauqua, and then this spring I'm supposed to go back and detect that area again, and the Chautauqua Institution, that is the controlling agency for that community, is going to have a whole display of things that I found in the lake with no labels. So they're going to have some kind of scavenger, like, hey, do you take your best guesses? What are these things? And then I'm supposed to give a presentation there sometime during the summer to say what everything is. And it'll be interesting.
See how people did. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah. And you can also say which one of these items were found underwater versus which one of these things were found.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well,
but
I mean,
you just
honestly, I would feel like the underwater, I feel like would have more corrosion, right? I mean, water's so destructive.
Oh yeah. But so there's so many, just like on land where, you go down to South Carolina and you get into that sugar sand and it's just the stuff that comes out is gorgeous, right?
Sure.
The same is true underwater, where there's different environments that are conducive to preservation or destruction. There was, in this lake behind me, it's so muddy in the bottom. I remember I thought I found a gold coin just like you. I pulled out an Indian, and that thing, someone must have rubbed it between their fingers until it was polished. This thing was a mirror finish, and I pulled it out of the water and it was a mirror finish. I still have it over there somewhere, but it's darkened up some because obviously it's impregnated with water, and it'll oxidize now that it's out, but they stay pretty nice. It's so in very muddy bottoms, if you can find stuff, sometimes, especially in fresh water, it's very preserved. I found, the trade-off is silver will oxidize anyway. It'll turn black. River stuff, the river coins, they get beat up a lot more because gravel's passing over them. It's the same concept of, I'll give a shout out to my boy Post 10 clearing culverts out in Maine, right? The gravel flowing erodes even these steel galvanized pipes right through. So the coins, like I'll try and show it here. This is an example, and the top half of the coin looks like rust. The bottom half is worn very thin because this part was sticking in a rock and the top part was sticking out in the water. So all that water and gravel passing over it over time wore down that, but the rest of it was kind of preserved. So it's really dependent on the environment that you're detecting, just like you would in a farm field versus someone's front yard.
Yeah. And do different lakes around you have different alkali contents and stuff like that, and different sort of toxicity makeups and stuff like that?
That, really? To be honest with you, I don't think that has any, for me, I haven't experienced it enough where it's had an impact on the coins. What it'll have an impact on is whether or not you're getting ear infections.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got that kind of tick now that you never had before.
Yeah, I have high frequency hearing loss in my left ear from getting a really bad ear infection when I was diving a river next to some farm fields where they were just hammering it with feces, right? So the water is very contaminated. And I got some ear virus out of that where I have permanent hearing loss in my left ear partially.
Gosh.
Yeah. So it's a thing, you want to be real careful about cleaning your ears out the right way and equalizing the pressure right and all this other stuff. There's some safety concerns for sure.
Yeah. Sounds like it, man. Wow. Well, yeah, I'll take the land hunting.
Ken, I'm telling you, if you get into some of these creeks, you find yourself an old hotel that's next to a stream or a creek or something like that. All those people used to go bathe in the water. So downstream of that is, way steeper or less, you will find stuff.
Yeah.
For sure. A lot.
Yeah. I still have the desire. I've always wanted to get certified diving too. I've never done it. I've always wanted to. I've talked about it for years. I've just never pulled the trigger. We'll see.
It's worth doing just for the experience. You know?
I think I would love the whole buoyancy of it. And, once you have that balance and you're just like moving slowly in the water, I think I would love that. I think I really would. Because I love snorkeling. Like, that's my favorite thing to do on vacation. Like, I just love snorkeling. So,
yeah, you would listen. You come visit, Ken. I'll get you set up.
I got open water certified in high school.
Would you?
Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. I know it's not necessarily. I mean, like it'd be like lake diving. It wouldn't be necessarily like rivers, but it is the most peaceful feeling. In non-moving water, just very, very quiet, very peaceful. It's pretty cool.
There's only one experience that's more peaceful, and it's an odd one, right? So in the wintertime, I'll cut holes in the ice with a chainsaw and put on a dry suit.
Okay.
And I'll tell you.
No, stop. All right, wait a minute. Wait.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's not good enough just to be out on the
me,
land.
You're not going to tell me you go like in the water to detect underneath some ice or something like that.
Well, I mean, I try and stay out from under the ice. I'll cut the ice off the surface so you're not going to get trapped under the sheet. But yeah, in the wintertime, it's a great opportunity because where is the you're in a state where all the ground's frozen. So you got to think outside of the box. So the bottom of the lake isn't frozen, only the surface. Right. So you cut the surface ice off just like they would in the 1800s to harvest ice, and you get rid of the ice, and then you're metal detecting underwater in a dry suit.
That's why I'm never going to find the good stuff, man. I'm telling you right now, like
being in that dry suit in that cold water is a very peaceful feeling. And it's incredible because the way you feel the cold is not like being cold. It's very odd. But these are all things like I would never encourage someone to do that without significant training. But I was a volunteer fireman for a number of years. So we had to practice doing all that stuff all the time. Because I used to drive around their airboat and we do ice water rescue, and that's part of the gig. So for me, it was like, hey, I'm staying more, or I'm giving myself better training by doing this more often. So when something bad would actually happen, I'm not. It's like second nature,
Yeah, that's so. Explain to me dry suiting and what it takes to go into really cold water like that. Like, does the airspace between the suit and you provide that insulation factor, or
Nope.
do you put water in between there?
Nope, you're totally dry. It's all based on the materials that are inside the suit. So if you're ever interested, they're yellow Mustang survival suits. They put them on boats, and if you ever watch the Alaskan crab fishing shows and stuff like that, these guys all have these suits stored in those boats because if you ever see them floating in the water after the ship sinks, that's what they're wearing. So they're rated for a certain amount of time, a certain temperature. But in as cold as it gets here in New York, I could easily spend a number of hours in the water in one of these suits and not think twice about it. You just don't feel the cold the way you would.
Totally different.
Wow.
Totally different. That's crazy.
One of the projects that I've been using that suit to work on in the wintertime is actually removing beaver dams from the outlet of the lake to try and keep the water stable. So me and another guy actually go in with these suits, and it's a fun time.
Wow.
Wow.
That's pretty awesome.
Have you ever gone under the ice? Like,
I'm not interested in doing that. I do know people that do it. Like there's some, the local people who dive do go and do underwater, and that's part of the drill. I mean, if you went through the ice, the state police and their dive team has to go recover the poor individual, and hopefully they get them in enough time. Especially in cold water, you can actually survive quite a while under the ice, where you can be resuscitated. But it's part of their training, and it's not part of mine, so I avoid that. I don't want to become the person they have to go rescue.
mm-hmm.
That's wow. That's incredible. Have you got videos on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, somewhere in there, there's some of those videos. Yeah. That's quite a while ago. The thing is, like the past 2 years, I did not make any videos, but I was still going out periodically and detecting and stuff like that. It's just. When you get to a point where you got to take a break, and I needed to take a break and focus on some of the mechanics of life. Now I'm back, baby.
Now you're back, baby.
I'm going to get you back more, Ken. You just wait.
Well, now I heard what a practical joker you guys are. I don't know, man. I got to keep my guard up for sure.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see.
I'll tell you, another peaceful location is a top 14,000 foot peak in Colorado. That is, it's dead silent. All you hear is, wind. Hopefully it's not too windy, but yeah, just dead silence. Very, very peaceful up there.
And then you pull out a pull tab and you're like, man, I'm not the only one that experienced this before.
That's right.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
I've climbed 7 14ers.
Have you done 7?
Wow.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. Years ago, not anytime recently. Years ago.
Yeah, that's the thing to do here in Colorado is trying to climb as many 14ers as possible. How many are there here? 52?
52 or 53, yeah. Mm-hmm. Did 2 in one day, actually.
How do you do that? Because it takes a number of hours, right?
Yeah.
It's really early.
Well, they're so close together. and then you go up over 14, and then there's a saddle that goes down to like 13.8, and you cross over about an hour to get up to the next one over 14. So, you know.
Wow. I think I'd struggle to breathe up that high.
It's cool. It's interesting. You're.
I mean, I'm already 6'6", so like I'm already in the clouds.
Yeah, you're already halfway there.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's a thing. Yeah,
you stop a lot, and there's a lot of resting.
Yeah.
Then you get the one people that are just they're jogging up past you. You know, you stick your leg out and trip. I mean, that's ridiculous. You don't know.
Right.
Come
Everyone's
on.
running up past you.
Yeah.
You get that on almost every trail here, you know.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
You're like, come on, man. Come on. So what's your favorite type of land hunting to do, Patrick? Like, and what's around you? What do you normally do? Like, okay, so there's parks, there's fields, there's beaches, there's,
door knocking.
ranches, door knocking in town. What do you think?
Yeah, I like hunting people's yards. I think that that's a lot of untapped potential. There's tons of cellar holes. There's tons of farm fields up here in the Northeast. There's so many interesting things to find in the yards of some of these old homes that are just, people forget. Like, yes, there are cellar holes, but there's also standing homes that are built in the same period of time that are still around. So I really enjoy hunting that stuff because you get to interact with a homeowner, and I enjoy that because a lot of the stuff that I find, it's like, listen, this stuff, here's a little display, put this on your mantle, keep it with a house. I'm not looking to hoard a bunch of things in the world. I end up with enough stuff just because, when you find it underwater, it's like, yeah, that's not going anywhere. When you find it, half the people aren't interested in what you're finding anyway. So when I can find somebody that is interested, it's a bonus.
Hey guys, we're being invaded.
Yeah, we got a couple people on with us.
We got people joining us here. Got Mr. Matt Howe. Are you there, Matt? I think Matt's at work.
Yeah, I'm here, guys. I got to get my stuff a little bit straighter, but I'm working on it.
All right, buddy. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, Matt.
Kinda see you. And David Rose, how you doing, David?
I'm doing real well, Ken. Thanks. It's an enjoyable show. It's interesting hearing about the water detecting.
Yeah. I mean, even, some of Patrick's story always interests me because of his, and it makes sense now. It's like, yeah, everything's frozen on ground. I know we experience that here in Colorado, and it's like concrete. But you're right. The bottom of the lakes aren't frozen.
Well, you mentioned before that you bought that Simplex, and that was a machine that I bought a while back, and I actually gave it to a cousin of mine. But for underwater, that was a really good machine. I would have preferred it with the smaller coil just because of how much iron there is around. Yeah. But I didn't even buy the headphones for that. I just dug based on the strength of the vibration. And I'm thinking to myself, like, gosh, if you were hearing impaired, this thing's epic for you. You could do absolutely anything with this.
Yeah. Matt, how are you, man? Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, guys, and I'm excited to stop in for a few minutes. Yeah. I had a question for Patrick about his suit that he wears.
Sure.
So, you use a traditional survival suit, and what you were explaining to everybody else there about them used like in Deadliest Catch and things like that. So I'm a diver.
Yeah.
And I use a scuba diving dry suit that has a relief valve. Do you ever find that your dry suit hinders you from going as deep as you want because of buoyancy of the suit?
Yeah, and that's a certain consideration, and the way I justify it is if a lot of what I do, I'm doing it alone. So it's not wise for me to go deeper anyway. But what you're saying totally makes sense. Like if I was going to buddy dive with somebody, maybe I would go under the ice. But as an individual, the flotation that's built into those suits, I can still probably get chest deep in the water without buoyancy becoming a problem. Once you get about to like the upper part of your chest, you are very buoyant. So I keep it closer to shore, and I try and go towards areas where, like in the summertime, I might necessarily go swampier parts of the lake where there used to be homes and stuff like that. That's been really productive because I don't want to mess around with snapping turtles in the summer and stuff like that.
Is that the big difference between a survival suit and a diving dry suit, Matt?
Yeah, so a diving dry suit is designed to have an air source that will allow you, we call it release the squeeze. So when you start to go down, the pressure of the water will start to squeeze the suit on you, and if you're not pressing air into it to release that squeeze, it can be quite actually asphyxiating. So especially if you go down too fast or anything like that. But no, that's interesting. I was wondering because I've done a little bit of dry suit stuff with my regular scuba suit, and if I get too deep, even for me, above, say chest, like mid chest, and I'm a fairly tall guy too. I'm 6'3". I find that I go to use my scoop to remove the item, and I'm bouncing a lot higher in the water than I really want to be.
Yeah. No, it's certainly a thing. The challenge with the in the wintertime is the other part of it is when you're committed to not going under the ice, you have to keep in mind that it's a lot of work to remove the ice. So I try and keep it closer to shore where it's a little bit easier.
Sure.
But that squeeze you're talking about, actually, I find that to be quite enjoyable.
Yeah,
That's that peaceful
like,
feeling in the cold. It's but yeah, I
like
totally
that
understand. If
comfort.
you're going deeper,
like a weighted blanket.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. It is fun.
Well, how deep you getting these days, Matt? Like you get down pretty good distance.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we do a lot of shark tooth hunting now. A lot of things have changed since Beyond Oak Island, but we dive in the Atlantic about 100, 110 feet. And then we'll dive rivers, 50, 60, 70. Dark water rivers below 60 feet, you really have to have your head screwed on tight. So we've got a couple of places we want to go. We just haven't had the chance to. They're almost 100-foot holes, and they're almost purely blackout water conditions.
Yeah, this is a fascinating lake because when you go below that 60-foot mark, I think there's only like 8 lakes like this in the country. The oxygen that's coming out of your regulator causes flash rusting of the water because there's no bacteria to eat the oxygen or eat the iron that's dissolved into the water. There's zero oxygen. So you go down below that depth and it's like it just clouds immediately. They've had colleges do core samples there because they can drill down and it's like, we snapped a drill bit off in the middle of a tree that's 20,000 years old. It's real unique. It's they use it similar to how they use ice cores in the Arctic.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you imagine any shipwreck or anything like that happens to be in that lake,
There's
it's
a
going
car
to be
down
flawless.
There's a car that went down in that hole in 1923. A woman parked it on the shoreline and took off some monstrous gold or diamond ring, put it in the glove box, forgot to set the brake on the car, and sent it down in a hole. So it mystifies me. I was like, oh man, we got to find this car. But it's just, I ran side scan sonar all over that spot. I think there's sediment on top of it, so you can't see it.
Oh, but, I'm sure.
Can you imagine what would a car look like that had been down there that wasn't exposed to oxygen? Would it rust? And so the answer that I came up with is that as soon as you pull it out, it would probably look like that scene, not from Raiders of the Lost Ark, but from the one where, the guy drinks from the Holy Grail there and he just vaporizes into dust, because it's the same thing. It's like time, even though you can stop the time of things dying down there, as soon as you remove them from that environment, they just immediately self-destruct.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's pretty similar to things that we would find in the river, like whether it's a tree or something, any anaerobic environment, deeply packed mud. It may come up and look absolutely beautiful when you find it, but it doesn't take 10 or 15 minutes for it to start to develop that tarnish. Now, it doesn't look like a tarnish of 10 years or 20 years, but you can definitely tell that something changes.
Yeah.
David, have you ever dove, or do you have any desire to dive?
No, my love of oxygen and not drowning supersedes my desire to go diving or scuba or anything like that. But I could probably do some knee deep detecting. I wouldn't mind that. But yeah, that's about the extent of my, he was talking about cutting a hole in the ice and going under. And I thought, well, there's one of my fears, claustrophobia, being under the ice, drowning. The only thing he's not saying is he sets himself on fire before he goes under. Warm. I mean, that's my other
after.
fear,
You got to
getting
warm
burned
yourself.
up.
You got to warm yourself back up by dousing yourself in gas. Isn't that how that works?
All right, divers, let me ask you guys something. Dave brings up an important point for you, those of you that dive under the water, because I said I've wanted to do it, haven't pulled the trigger yet. Tony, you got certified. How do you get over that fear of drowning, the fear of running out of air, the fear? How long did it take you guys? Like I've heard people say fairly quickly you can get over that. And now I heard people say, yeah, that kind of stays with you for a little bit. What do you guys think?
Personally, for me, I would say that everybody, whether you've got a million dives under your belt or it's your second one, at some point in time in your career, you will have a claustrophobia freak out moment. You know, it happens. It happened. It actually happened to me this year. And I did 100 dives this year, 104 last year, 110, whatever.
Wow.
It's with everything. It's relying on training and understanding your equipment, you know?
Yeah. So even with all that experience, you can still have those occasional, oh crap moments.
Yeah. You can put yourself into a pickle because it's like, there's this like graph we talk about at work, and it's about experience versus confidence, right? So you have no experience in your first few years when you're doing something, and you have the most confidence in the world. And like, where do accidents happen? Accidents happen like over a 20-year, like using somebody's work. They happen the first 5 years and the last 5 years. And it's because somebody may have a ton of experience, but no confidence in themselves at the end of their career. And that's where accidents happen. So, you know, it's just relying on your training and staying fresh on that stuff to me. But, and it's different for everybody. What Patrick does is way different. I don't even think I could go put on one of his suits and get in the ice the way that he does, because he knows how to do it the way he does it.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, I think a lot of it is training your mind, you know, and the claustrophobia thing is real. You know, for me, I think one of the things that I struggle with is there's always, like, when I'm working in the lake here, you can't see what you're doing most of the time. It's just the bottom's all silt, so you're going after it, and you're just doing everything by feel, and that can definitely weigh on your mind a lot. You know, the next thing you know, there's a snake wrapped around your arm or something like. Then you get a little nervous, you know, but I feel like something that helped me out a lot was all the training I had to do in the fire department with, you know, they put a bag over your head and you're going through a burning building, kind of, you know, burning training simulation, or they smoke out a room, or so these high pressure situations where you're training for that. It's very useful to push your body to that extreme where you're in a very uncomfortable space. And when you do that often, it is helpful. You know, it's like the same in the military, they train like this. And I think that if you're going to get into it, you got to be really serious about what's the risk and how do I plan for the risk. So, you know, walking around in waist deep water, the risk is a lot smaller than saying I'm going to load myself up with a bunch of lead weight, because on a hookah system, it's like you want to be dragging the bottom. And even thinking about that giant hole in the lake, you know, wouldn't want to go over that. It's a straight down 90-foot drop.
Or even like Matt, he's 60 feet down. He's in pure black water.
Right.
He's just rooting around with his hands. And, you know, Matt, in a year, 100 and something dives in a year. How many times have you gotten hung up on something you didn't know?
Oh, weekly.
All you know, you can't move.
Yeah, weekly. Yeah. There's
there's your training. I guess that's what.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of obstructions, and you know, some of the most dangerous places we dive are the shallowest. You know, they may be 8 foot deep, but they're, you know, crisscross trees laying on top of each other, and that's really sketchy to be around, or pylons that are sticking up that you can't see. You know, those are typically the most dangerous. So you have to learn.
Yeah, some of the places around the lake here, you know, it's one of the sketchier things is people used to use, I don't want to say, it's galvanized steel pipe, right? Like 2-inch galvanized steel pipe. They drive into the ground to support their docks. So those docks are long gone. You don't even know these steel pipes are there. And so they stick 1 or 2 feet out of the bottom of the water, and they're spears now because they're rusted paper thin. So it's like, yeah, that's you got to watch out. You got to know what you're dealing with.
Matt Smith in the chat said he doesn't even like elevators. So he's not under the ice anytime soon.
Right.
What's the coldest water you've been in, Matt? Do you think Atlantic?
Me? No, it was this year. I dove January 1st, 41 degrees. So that lasted for 8.5 minutes to 20 feet. I'm interested. Patrick, what's your cold water?
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know what the temperature is. I've never taken the time to figure that out. I probably should. I know the worst year I was doing it, we had 3 feet of ice. And so by the time we got that block of ice out of the way, I mean, the water's cold, but it's like those suits, I'm telling you, whether the water is whatever the temperature is that builds 3 feet of ice, it feels no different than when it's like 40 degrees. It's crazy.
Wow.
But
wow.
Yeah, that's a good product, but they're expensive. So it's one of those things where it's definitely not for everybody, but you're in the fire department or something like that where they have access to these things. It's worth getting that training and learning how to use one if you ever have to go into the water.
And Patrick showed us a couple of hotel tags here a minute ago on camera, and one of them was found above land, one was found underwater, and it was the one from underwater it's completely different, right? And does it just matter what type of water you're in? Like Matt, sometimes is that the case for you or not the case for you? Usually, things more preserved under the water, or can they get just as corrosive for you, depending on your water?
Well, yeah, anything that has any salt content, because about 300 miles inland, but we still have some tidal stuff that comes in. So by the fall, if we don't have a big rain or anything, you can get some brackish water and stuff like that. So you have to recognize. You have to recognize that. Clearly, anything that's in that muddy environment that's protected or deep in the sand or silt, that is going to be the best quality. That didn't get the wave action. That's kind of cool about where Patrick's at. He's not necessarily getting that kind of action.
Right.
Although I would imagine that if it's shallow enough, he could find some stuff that has some like freeze action, right? Like thaws and freezes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
thaws.
When I detect out in the woods here, the water table, because it's all shale, is right on the surface. And I've never seen anything like it. I've never found coins like it, but you'll find a wheat penny or an Indian, and it's paper thin because of that exact element. It's the constant getting wet and freezing and thawing, and it's the coin. It's like rips the coin surface right off it, paper thin.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because some river environments do that, other places don't, and you just have to learn how the currents flow and move around. Patrick, what percentage of stuff, and maybe you guys talked about this with research, are you like focusing on old sites? Are you focusing on gold, or do you think do you find a happy medium between the two of them?
I never focus on gold. I never find it. So I guess I should focus on it. I'm looking for more areas where I kind of just walk the earth. I've been asked this question a number of times. For my local area, I try and find things that are old, like on an 1866 map, or perhaps related to the railway, which is more 1890s, 1900. I will hunt some farm fields this time of year because the woods, people hunt. So I just kind of try to be more respectful about staying out of the woods during that period of time. But for me, it's just the mystery of what an area could hold. One of my favorite places to go is a town park, but it used to be a mansion right up through 1790. It's the hardest place I've ever metal detected because some of the buildings were lined with lead. Some of them were lined with zinc, and they plowed and plowed and plowed and plowed all these buildings into the ground. So you'll find some of the most incredible things in the ground, but it's so hard. I've dug out like a brass nut had to weigh 1.5 pounds. It was maybe 2 inches below the surface, and you couldn't hardly hear it with a metal detector. There's so much iron mineralization in that ground; it's crazy. And that's what the dye is. So it's and I've run all sorts of machines through there, but I like the challenge of trying to find anything, you know. So
when you're in the water and if you're in the water and you stumble up across a good site, do you look for correlations on maps later, or do you have any correlations to other sites that are similar to that?
So home turf, I don't care. Everywhere has stuff basically on the lake, and I've done the research to kind of give me some pointers. But when I go places, I'll always do research in advance to try and give me a little bit better of an idea of where people would have spent their time. So I spent a lot of time looking at old postcards. Like the old 1866 beers maps that were done for most of the country. I'll look at those. I use historic aerials, and then I'll run LiDAR onto the area as well to try and kind of get a good smorgasbord of, hey, maybe there's activity here. Let's go check this area out. And it's just kind of reading the ground like everyone does, I guess.
Do you ever find that? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take your guys'
No, please.
show over.
Keep asking. These are great questions.
Yeah.
Do you ever find that you've done the research and for whatever reason that the stuff is there, but you can't reach it within the lake?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. And so underwater, the challenge is nails and brass, like, shell casings, but mainly nails. There's so many nails in these areas where there's activity because, there's docks, there was piers, there was this, there was that. And so you really just got to commit to dig all the overload signals, because those are going to be the ones that mask the most. And then just keep working the area over and over and over again. If you want to get a lot of stuff, you can certainly go through just like you would on a colonial site and cherry pick the easy signals, and people, I'm sure, do that. But because it's home and I have unlimited time to live here, I really try to be quite thorough. Out in the wild, yeah, you kind of work an area, you see how good the ground is, you keep moving around. I think pretty much everybody's trying to do that. But for sure, there's been a lot of places I've been where I know there's stuff there, and it's super frustrating that I can't find it. And the best evidence I find is like, hey, you hit a really good signal. It's like a foot down, and it's a lamp wick adjuster. And it's like, yeah, that takes a while to sync. And so, the heavier, smaller things are way out of reach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm more curious about. We find places that we just know that there are items there, and then you jump off the boat and you're in 4.5 foot of mud, and screaming at somebody to pull you back into the boat.
Yeah, exactly. And Chautauqua Lake is like that a bit. You got to find areas where it's not so silted in. That's the only runaround. Just
because it's there doesn't mean you can get to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And look, I've been crazy. Like I've got a dredge hooked up outside that I was going to dredge things for that purpose, because when I was younger, this lake didn't have, I'm sure you're familiar with them, zebra mussels, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have those. So you used to be able to just swim around and find stuff with a mask on. With the zebra mussel impact, there's a layer of not only just probably 2 inches of shells down there now, dead shells, but there's a black algae that floats on the bottom that you got to clear all that stuff out of the way just to get the actual bottom of the lake before you can do anything. Yeah. So I can totally understand where you're coming from with it.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, Denny, how are you, man? Good to hear from you. Can you hear us? Did you figure it out?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah, I finally figured it out after 3 calls.
There you go. Everyone, Denny Morrison on the phone with us. Excellent. Anyways, I was going to say,
anyway,
hey guys, have you got?
Go ahead,
Denny. I was going to say,
I just wanted to know if the guy.
I know what he's going to ask me.
You're listening to the show. You got to listen to your phone, Denny. You got to turn the show down.
I already turned it down.
Did you? Okay. All right.
Have you ever used GAIA maps?
Gosh, I maybe I don't know, a long time ago. I have not used the Gaia maps anytime recently. I should.
Well, it goes back into the 1900s. Actually, goes back to the 1850s, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And it goes. All I use is 1850s, 1930s, and 1900s. That's all I use.
Yeah.
And it will bring up everything you're looking for. A lot will come up, not everything.
So
then you have to use plat maps you get from the library. Go ahead.
I'm fortunate because for my area, I own the 1866 maps. Like I have the actual atlases, the hard copies. So I use those as like my starting point, and then I'll use historic aerials to get the topographical maps that pick up around the 1870s, 1880s. And I'm only using those to try and gauge when those home sites stop being occupied, to kind of give me an idea of an end date. And so like there's one I detected last week, it right up against the road. Everybody drives by this thing. I talked to a guy that detected it before. Of course, said, I detected it. It's super trashy. There's nothing there. So, I did some research, and it's like, this was a really interesting spot. I found handfuls of stuff there, and none of it was particularly old, but like I probably found 7 or 8 tokens all from the 1930s there. It's like someone scattered their token collection out. It's like, oh yeah, this is awesome. All about that. But imagine once you get through that, maybe there will be some older stuff there. But I think that house was built about 1820, 1830, something like that. So you never know.
If you use GAIA, it will take you right to the house site, period. Doesn't even have to be there. It will take you. Today, I hunted a log cabin site that's not on any maps, and I got an 1853 token that from a grocery store in Findlay, Ohio, on the back. Is that cool?
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And it was in a log. We pretty much know it was a log cabin site, and we found several Civil War buttons there. A flying eagle penny has come out of that field.
Wow.
It's just an awesome site. Yeah.
Yeah.
Denny,
It was just dumb luck. I asked the farmer. Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't you sell me that Nautilus? Was that you?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
I didn't forget about that. Me and my buddy Mike, who's the other guy who is really into the Nautilus, I'm trying to get to go out with him and swing that machine around more because he's so into the Nautilus.
Yeah.
he
Dennis
just
Cox
had
is the guy you need to talk
surgery.
to.
Who is it?
You know Dennis Cox in Virginia?
No. I can look him up though.
He is the master of the Nautilus, the master, period.
There you go.
He can tell you when he gets a signal what it is and how deep it is, and I guarantee you that's what it is. Period.
There you go.
Sign me up.
If you go to any relic shop in Virginia, his stuff is there for sale. Period. Dennis Cox.
Dennis Cox.
He is
Looking
awesome.
him up.
Good tip.
He never sent his machine in because he didn't want him to mess with it. He has it duct taped every which way you can think of, and when you look at it, you think, "What? This thing won't find it." It does. He can tell you if it's a breastplate, if it's a CSA buckle, if it's a 58, a 69, and it will be what he calls every time. That's the guy that knows his machine.
That's a genuine fear I have is like, so I have the Deus and some other machines, and it's like, I'm afraid to update them. I know it would be advantageous because like with the Deus, I have to reset my settings every time because it doesn't save them. And I know the update fixes that, but it's like, all right, what did they detune when they also did the update to make it more user friendly? Like I kind of want it the raw deal here, So I don't know. Maybe
well, I was using my, I used my D2 today, and I actually just used general. I had settings on it, but I just used general. I used the cross bar, you know what I'm talking about.
The XY screen or whatever.
The XY screen. And it came up just a blip, but guess what? It was a high signal. I went, that's a good signal. And I thought, I'm going to dig this thing 12 inches down in the ground. Here's this token. I went, oh my gosh, it's an Indian head penny. I couldn't believe it. So don't always believe what it tells you. Just listen to your ears. They'll tell you.
There you go, Tony. We're going to start to dive into the D-Talk.
That's why I like.
It's turning into a whole Deus conversation. I don't know about this.
Well, this is this
I'm
is
sorry,
an interesting.
Tony.
I mean, I was actually gonna to get a Manicore, but they didn't have the coil options then, so I got the 900. But that's one of the things that I'll say that the original Deus and the Excalibur, which is like I think they made the land version. Maybe it was called I forget. It wasn't the sword. It was something
I had an
else.
Excalibur. It weighed too much.
It does. But underwater, it's neutral, right? But the sounds like that, the way that the sounds come through the machines when it's on, when you put a Deus on full tones or you have an Excalibur, that is something that's missing. I feel like in new machines, and I can put the new Deus on full tones, and it's good,
right?
But it's not as good as the D1 is. I'm convinced of that. As far as the tones,
I agree.
It's much more like it's the difference between a square wave and a sine wave. Those subtle ins and outs are a big deal. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, put it in squares sometime. Yeah.
No, and I know.
You work with it. It'll come. Yeah. It'll come. Actually, what you need is a Tesoro Tiger Shark, and it will kick all those others under the water. Because that's what I use.
I'm writing it down. I'm putting it on a book. No, I don't have gear acquisition syndrome. Not at all.
It will find the finest gold chain you ever tried to find. It will find it. Period.
Go ahead.
Tesoro Tiger Shark.
Call up Tesoro and get them to send you one right on over.
Right.
They don't make them anymore.
Sell them on Amazon. Yeah. Hey Matt, have you ever checked out David Rose's museum room? Can you see that in the reflection behind Dave?
I can. I'm quite impressed there.
It's
Hi Matt, how you doing?
I'm good.
Well,
actually,
I figured out how to change the background because I thought my boring wall was gross. So I thought, I got pictures. I wonder if I can change the background. So while I was listening to you guys,
I love
that's what you did, right?
Messing around and
now we all want to zoom in.
I know.
We can't zoom in
For sure.
Yeah, crazy man. Well, Denny, thanks for calling in, man. I'm glad you figured out this is how we're going to do call-ins from now on. So just next time you join us, I'll put some kind of new ID and new password in there, and you'll just have to call in this way. It's better audio. It's better audio.
Maybe I can figure out. Maybe I can figure out how to do Zoom.
Oh, if you do that, and then we see your smiling face. That'd be great.
That's okay. All right.
Good talking to you.
Denny.
You got a great guest tonight.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Love Patrick. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir. See, now Denny is supposed to sell me the Tesoro.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that a tradition? He's got to sell me the machine every time.
He does, right. He sold you the Nautilus. Now he's got to get out the Tiger Shark for you. That's
Gosh, I got to use that machine more. That is a fun machine to use. It's I got just the place to take it to this weekend.
Yeah.
There you go.
Old school. The district I work for, in their infinite wisdom, they make budget cuts, so they sell buildings. But it's like, guys, you're in a city. You can't just build a new school in the middle of a city. So you probably should have kept those buildings. So one of these big, huge middle schools they sold that got bought and developed into apartments. And that guy, James, that I detect with, he's like, oh, why don't you come over to this place and see if there's anything here? So I was over there after work today, and we popped out a couple quick targets, like a religious medal and a mercury dime and stuff. But this deep stuff, so it'd be a good spot for that Nautilus because it wasn't very trashy.
It's funny to hear people talk about Nautilus. That's the machine of Virginia. It's kind of crazy, but I just sold one about a couple of weeks ago, and it might have been your buddy Mike who was reaching out to me asking me if I would ship it to New York. Yeah,
Mike Kelly, Boston Spa.
Now, maybe it was him. I can't remember, but
I'm gonna pick on him if it wasn't. I was like, dude, there was an Nautilus deal that went down, and it wasn't you. You got a problem. Better get a pulse on it.
Yeah, tell him to call me. I'll get him as many as he wants.
Yeah.
How about you, Dave? Dave, you've been around quite a while. So have you used some of those old machines?
Man, my first detector was back in 1977, a Garrett coin hog or something like that. And
is that the
big?
it had a little button on the end that you would push to discriminate iron on the end of the handle, and that thing would go through C batteries like crazy. But no, I had a Whites for a while, but then I ended up staying with Garrett for a long time. I don't know why. And then I ended up switching. I had an Ace 250, and then I switched to an E-Track. And that's when I really started getting into, for so many years, I was just doing tot lots and school grounds. I wasn't really doing any research. Just, I liked treasure hunting, but, old churches, maybe get a silver here and there. But then, once I started really getting into it and getting into the research, I needed a better machine. So I went with the E-Track. Then I lived in Germany, and E-Track doesn't work very well over there because it's just a different soil and everything. And so I ended up getting the Deus. And now I have still have the E-Track for like if I go coin shooting here in America, old parks, old churches and stuff. If I'm doing farm fields, it's the Deus, of course. But yeah, a lot of those machines, I've always heard the expression, it's not the wand, it's the wizard. So
there you go. I like that.
I'm gonna get that tattooed on my swinging.
I'm gonna start putting those sweatshirts out.
Yeah, there you go, Ken.
Just in time for Christmas.
There you go. Jeez. Yeah, the E-Track. That's another legendary machine I'd love to get my hands on at some point,
Well, hey,
Fantastic.
You guys, I appreciate you guys calling in, man. It's been really fun talking to you, Matt. It was amazing. We definitely need to catch up. You're welcome to stay on for the rest of the show. Real quick, I want to mention Patrick. I just put a link to a YouTube video in the chat. I know we're almost out of time, but Patrick, real quick, tell us the story of the old GE light bulb. To me, that's how much I love that story, man. I even wrote about your video. I wrote the president. Yeah. I wrote the president of marketing. I tried so hard to get your video put on that Super Bowl that year.
So listen, here's how this happened, right? So we're in 2020, it's COVID. And traditionally speaking, I would drive around with my pickup truck and pick up used tires on the side of the road for Earth Day and then pay the state $3.50 tax on it to get rid of them as like a way to celebrate Earth Day, because tires are a scourge, right? Like you see one, then there's 4, then there's 40. So because of COVID, I didn't have a time to like get together my little hit list of tires to get. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to walk down the street and pick up garbage on the side of the road. So I start walking, I start picking up garbage, and then I see those bottles. I start picking up bottles on the side of the road, and that went down 10 feet. So I dug this huge crater in the side of the road that was 10 feet deep, and I was finding all sorts of stuff. And the bottles were like 1890s. And so in the middle of winter, I was still digging it, and I found this GE light bulb, and the filament was still in there, and it looked perfectly fine. So I'm like, all right, what are the chances this thing works? So I'm like, I filmed the little thing of me finding it. And I truly, I didn't know if this thing would work or not. And I screwed it in and I turned the light on and the thing worked. And I'm like, all right, I'm freaking out inside because I had just seen that video where those bottle diggers found that like half full flask of whiskey or whatever and exploded in the guy's face. So like, this is what's going to happen with this light bulb if I don't turn it off pretty quick.
Right.
I'm thinking like, all right, I got a grenade in front of me here. We got to defuse this. But it was interesting. That's the story of that. I kind of did this bottle dig thing with a buddy of mine, and it was in there, and just I don't know.
It's a giant 100-year-old GE light bulb. It plugs it in and it works. It's like, if that's not an advertisement for quality,
that's right,
and lasting power for GE, I swear I went all after anybody I could find from GE and just posted his link to the video. I'm like, you guys got to see this. This has to be on the Super Bowl ad. Like, you guys have got to use this.
I still have that thing. I mean, it's crazy. Like, everything was built with such better quality at that period of time. Yeah, I mean, the light bulb's probably from the 20s. But it survived.
This is a cool, wow factor. Definitely the way you filmed it on your short there. I think it was just a short, right? And
that's it.
It was quick. So excellent, man. Well, you've been a great guest, Pat. Our callers tonight have been great and really added a lot, Matt and Dave. Always love your stories. And now I get to look at all your beautiful finds behind your face whenever you call in. So that's definitely keep that going. But
that's an aspirational image for sure.
Patrick, we'll give you the last word. And actually, if you guys hang on, I'll give you each the last word. Let us know what you guys are up to, Matt and David, next. But Pat, we'll let you go first.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure.
It is. Come on, you got to sing us a song or something.
Stay curious. Always
Stay
keep
curious.
looking, That's it.
Nice.
That's it. Matt, how about you, bud? What do you got coming up?
Oh, nothing exciting. I'm just popping in to say hi to you guys. It's always a pleasure. But maybe we'll have something up. And maybe we'll talk about it sometime soon.
Okay.
Cool.
Yep. Sounds good. You know how to get a hold of me.
I do.
Good to see you, buddy. How
Good
about
to see
you,
guys.
Dave? Yep. What do you got going on, Dave? Now, I know we're going to have you on here pretty soon
Yeah.
to talk about some special trips you've been on here recently, but
Yeah. Just, autumn's a good time to go detecting before the winter hits and the ground freezes. So, pretty much last weekend, this weekend, I'm going out again, and nothing big. I'm really looking forward to the show, and with Tim and Jeff will be joining me, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, I think we're shooting for beginning December for that show. So everyone
Yeah.
stay tuned for that. It's going to be a real special show. You're going to want to definitely pay attention when we start advertising that. So look forward to talking to you then. David, if I don't see you again, have yourself a great weekend and go get that stuff. The stuff that's good. Tony, how about you? We're going to see each other this weekend.
Yeah, we're heading out actually detecting, believe it or not, tomorrow on Saturday. So have kind of a historical spot to go to, and who knows what's going to come of it. Hopefully, fingers crossed that we get some good stuff out of there. If not, we'll hit a couple of places. Weather's supposed to be nice, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Me too. I don't have all day. I think I got to probably split around 3, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Very generous of the guy to invite us along. He was actually a guest we had here on the podcast, local Coloradan here, and he got himself a banger of a permission. So he invited us along.
Yep.
And we're real grateful. So looking forward to seeing you and doing some detecting.
Yep. I just wanted to thank Patrick for coming on. It's been fantastic speaking with you and listening to your stories. I know we could talk for another couple hours about stuff, and just appreciate all your time on here tonight. And if you guys are interested in what I'm up to, 5280 Adventures in Google, you come up with YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of good stuff. Check me out. I'll be over there.
Yep. And I'm DK with Adventures in Dirt. You can find me over at Adventures in Dirt. If you get me in the water, that's Adventures in Mud. I like that earlier. That was somebody in chat said that earlier. That was great.
Ken, we're flying you out here. We're making that reality.
Let's do it, man. I'll get muddy. No problem. Let's go do that.
Hey, Ken,
I started. Yeah.
Thanksgiving next week.
Yes. Thanksgiving next week. We're going to take a break. We're not going to be doing a show for Thanksgiving, of course, but from Tony and myself, we want to wish you guys all the best, and for you and your family, and a happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there in the Relics Radio world and supporters of us and fellow metal detectorists. Everyone be safe and enjoy time with your family if you are able to get together, and we'll see you on the other side of that. I believe on the 30th. I think we have our next show on the 30th, and hopefully have Meryl Kazanji in there from Metal Detecting New York joining us. Metal Detecting NYC. So we'll see. But everyone have yourself a great Thanksgiving. I know I've started putting stuff out on YouTube again. I'm going to start getting back into that. So, be taking a look at the channel there, and I'll be posting links on my Facebook page. But hey, if you go out this weekend, go get the good stuff and tell us about it. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great weekend, and we will see each other sometime after the break. Okay.